Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, FW de Klerk, the South African president who oversaw the end of apartheid, dies aged 85, leaving behind a complex legacy and apologising for the pain and hurt caused to black, brown and Indian South Africans. Also, the internet's cut across Sudan as ruling General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan says he'll head up a new transitional council. And Moscow vows to continue military cooperation with Mali as the foreign ministers of both countries meet in Moscow. But first, South Africa's last white president left a posthumous apology for apartheid after dying on Thursday.
Let me today, in this last message, repeat, I, without qualification, apologize for the pain and the hurt and the indignity and the damage that apartheid has done to black, brown and Indians in South Africa.
Well, FW de Klerk passed away from cancer, aged 85. He played a role in the country's transition to democracy, but his legacy remains complex.
Well, I thought he tried to do a lot of good, and he succeeded in helping to bring down apartheid, which was a good thing, and I think that's how he should be remembered.
Granted, the time he was president and the actions that he did take prior to him becoming president, bad, very bad, sinful. It was mass genocide of black people. I mean, as a human being, you can't agree with that, but at the same time, you have to look at the actions that he did take that changed the country.
Honestly, I feel no remorse. Even though a politician died, I feel like his death helped South Africa move forward in a way, away from all the criticism, the negativity, the racism. So I feel like it moved us in a way.
Well, de Klerk's been described as occupying an historic but difficult space in South Africa's story. Nadine Theron tells us more.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has offered his condolences to the family of the late former President FW de Klerk and said that he is saddened by his passing. Ramaphosa said that de Klerk played a key role in ushering in South Africa's democracy. He hasn't, however, said whether or not de Klerk will have a state funeral, and instead that he's waiting to hear from de Klerk's family about the funeral arrangements. Former President FW de Klerk was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993, sharing this with former President Nelson Mandela. De Klerk became South Africa's president in 1989, and shortly after, he made the historic announcement that would change the course of the country's history forever. He lifted the ban on the African National Congress, the liberation movements of Nelson Mandela, and he freed Nelson Mandela and other political prisoners. Shortly after, he entered into negotiations with the African National Congress that led to the first democratic elections and the advent of a new South Africa. De Klerk was appointed as a deputy president of the new South Africa and also played a key role in writing the South African Constitution. He spent his last years advancing democracy through the FW de Klerk Foundation. However, his death has been met with mixed reactions in South Africa. He has come under fire in recent years for failing to account for his role in the atrocities committed under the apartheid regime. He also controversially denied that apartheid was a crime against humanity. But de Klerk offered his apology from beyond the grave in a video statement released by the FW de Klerk Foundation today. He said that he acknowledges his support of the apartheid system in his younger years. Some far-right South Africans have accused him of selling out the country and surrendering to the ANC's demands. Either way, it can be said that de Klerk's actions helped to avoid a bloodbath in South Africa, and all in all, he did change the course of history of the country.
Well, on Thursday, the internet was cut across Sudan as ruling General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan named a new transitional council, which he'll be heading up. A military takeover ousted the civilian government last month. That sparked international condemnation and a deadly crackdown. Critics have denounced the new council as just an extension of the coup. Dr. Jihad Mashamoon's a political analyst who tells us more about the likely impact of the new transitional council.
this declaration has happened with Burhan's trying to legitimize it by correcting the course of the revolution, as you say, which was, however, the way he came through it was a capture of power, and that's because he didn't have the support of the civilian counterparts. Now, the council that has been formed, has been formed recently in the past few hours. It actually has been rushed because 2 or 3 members of the council declined to be part of it. So basically, it indicates that there's no approval for this capture of power. And many people in Sudan, including the civilian parties and the people in the streets, they call the capture of power a coup.
Do you think that trust between civilian and military factions can be reestablished?
Trust can be reestablished, yes, that's possible. However, if that trust is reestablished, it's going to undermine the credibility of the civilian political parties at the moment, because they already lost much of it when they agreed to be part of the transition government to begin with since July 2019, when they agreed to be part of the partnership with the military. And furthermore, the performance in the government wasn't actually really that helpful to begin with. So basically, they develop a negotiation with the military without actually getting a concession from the military to step down. And by military, I mean Burhan and Hemeti, to step down from power and to hand over power to the civilians. Their people won't trust them anymore. It will actually undermine their credibility.
Now, we've seen mediators heading into the country to try and bridge the gap between the civilian and military elements and trying to usher in a return to democratic rule. Have they made any progress, and what have they been pushing for?
From what I recall and what I read and when I speak to other sources, they've all been pushing for the civil-military partnership to be reestablished again and the transition to continue forward, which is actually contrary to what the people in the streets are demanding. That they want a complete civilian government without the involvement of the military. Now, the reason why I believe it actually failed, the negotiation failed is because the civilians don't have the political ability to give concessions to the military, and the military doesn't have the political ability to be implicit that they want concessions. And the concessions they want is immunity for what is believed their role in Darfur, and for what is also believed in emptying the protest site in 2019. If they get those concessions from the civilian, on the other hand, the civilians would have a problem in communicating that agreement to the people who are protesting on the street.
Well, tensions remain high in Ethiopia as rebels from the northern region of Tigray make territorial gains in a devastating year of war. International envoys have been pushing for a ceasefire, and Addis has said that would only be possible if TPLF rebels withdrew from the Amhara and Afar regions. Meanwhile, there's been a wave of arrests in the capital and reports of hundreds of Tigrayans being detained there. Some trying to leave the country are reportedly being prevented from even entering the airport. One resident of Addis Ababa anonymously told us about the climate of fear in the capital. We've disguised their voice.
The treatment of people of Tigrayan origin is really very, very difficult because everyone is liable to detention anytime without involvement to either political or whatever, because, the officers might just detain you on their own, or a neighbor might inform the officers, and anytime, even in the middle of the night, they might come and knock at your door and take you. People are very, very fearful about the situation. It's so uncertain. Anything can happen. Many people have sympathy why it might affect the country, the unity of the country at the end. But they are fearful because they might be taken as supporters of the insurgents. What's really puzzling for me is the media. TV is always there that these people are very dangerous. They are going against the national security, and it's just like brainwashing people to hate speech, so much hate speech in the media. Now the Facebook is not working, and there are many types of information that you get from various sources, so it's difficult to verify whether they have some grain of truth or not. But we don't see any unity in this respect, and that's one of the problems that is affecting the national fabric. I'm so afraid that a very, very dangerous thing might happen if not some intervention is done by the international community. I don't think the international community have given enough attention because I think they are worried about the integrity of the country. They don't want the country to disintegrate. But if you just keep quiet, the collapse will happen.
And Ethiopia said that it's only detaining individuals it believes to have affiliations to the TPLF. In other news, Moscow's vowed to continue military cooperation with Mali as the foreign ministers of both countries met in Moscow on Thursday. The Kremlin sidestepped questions about Russian mercenary group Wagner. Earlier this year, there were reports that Mali was considering hiring about 1,000 of its fighters as France reduces the number of its troops in the Sahel. Nick Chemin tells us more.
Moscow's message was a clear response to French concerns. The Kremlin denied it had links to private military firm Wagner. Paris believes Wagner wants to sign contracts with the Malian government.
We have nothing to do with the activities of any such structures that were created by the citizens of Russia. They independently conclude contracts. If these contracts are concluded with the legitimate governments of sovereign states, then I do not understand what can be seen as negative here.
Investigative journalists say Wagner belongs to oligarch Evgeny Prigozhin, a close friend of Vladimir Putin. In Moscow on Thursday, Mali's foreign minister said the two countries had historical links. He said up to 80% of Mali's military equipment comes from Russia.
Whenever Mali has been in difficult situations since our independence, Russia has always been with us. Today we are in a difficult situation and we are still turning to this friend so that they can help us out.
Russia said it would continue to arm Mali, while France has said it will downsize its force in the Sahel region. The aim is to reduce the number of French troops from 5,000 to around 3,000 by 2023. Tensions are running high between Paris and its former colony. Mali said France was abandoning the West African country, while Paris accused Bamako of lacking respect for the French soldiers who have died in Mali in the struggle against jihadists.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
Nearly 200 countries are meeting here in Scotland for what could be their last chance to rein in global warming. Their commitment still falling short of the Paris Agreement goals. They must radically ramp up ambition at a time when greenhouse gas emissions have reached an unprecedented level. Join us for our special coverage of COP26. We'll be bringing you the latest news and analysis here on France 24.